Good morning, everybody. I'm Reverend Karyl Huntley. Good morning to everybody who's watching us in their jammies. We love you. And Ron, can you kind of pan the group here, wave at all of our friends who are at home, and let them know how much fun we're having here. But we're very happy to have them online. So welcome and enjoy with your coffee. So. We are in the midst of this wonderful month on generosity because of the holiday of Thanksgiving, of course. I'd like to draw your attention to Gailya's altar today, which is about generosity. That's the goddess of, the dance of generosity by the goddess, and a family that looks absolutely so filled with gratitude and thanksgiving. So, and just the profusion of nature is evidence of the quote that we're looking at all month long, which came from the essay that our founder wrote, What We Believe. Ernest Holmes is the founder, for those of you that are here for the first time, and he wrote an essay that is basically the tenets of this wisdom tradition or philosophy that we call science of mind. And the entire essay is right over there on that stand-up thingy. And we are taking one quote a month. And this quote this month is, "We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all." And so that speaks about the unconditional love of God and how everything is continuously given to us. Everything that we could possibly want or need has already been given. We couldn't ever manifest it if it hadn't already been given. And so our work is, of course, giving thanks for all that has been given and making sure that we manifest our goodies. And we do that simply by acceptance. So the title of the talk today is Counting Our Blessings. Now, isn't that great? So those blessings are courage, and heart, and wisdom. So those are already given for absolutely sure. And the word today is Thanksgiving. So this is the Thanksgiving talk because it's the Sunday before Thanksgiving. And so there are three basic things to be thankful for. And one is really easy. The really easy one is to be thankful for what we have that we already love. That's really easy. So turn to your neighbor and say one thing that you have that you're grateful for. That was wonderful. Did you feel how the energy rose even higher after that great song and after we all expressed a little gratitude? And see how easy that was? That was very easy. We don't need to learn about that. That was very easy. The next one is still relatively easy, and that is being grateful for what we don't have that we would love. And using the creative law and the wisdom of our teaching to create in ourselves a vibrational match so that what we would love naturally flows to us. And we're helping you with that today by this Thanksgiving card. This is in your seat or in the seat next to you. We have plenty today, so don't not get yours. What you do here is you write what you want to be thankful for next Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving of 2015. You write down what you want to be thankful for, you put it in this envelope, you lick the envelope shut, and you self-address it. And then we will mail it to you the week before Thanksgiving next year. You probably received yours from this year that you made last year if you wrote one. So this is part of the second thing to be grateful for in our lives, which again is relatively easy if we know how to work the creative law. And if you don't know how to work the creative law, which all of us can learn better, keep coming and take classes. And then that's pretty easy. So we don't really need to talk about that any more than we have. Okay? Good. That's done. So, by the way, leave these cards, if you would, on the event table, which is the table under the clock, and we will collect them, put a stamp on them in a year from now. So, what's hard to be grateful for is what's hard in our lives, the difficult things in our lives. And it would be easy for me to talk about the other two, but we really don't need that because that's not our growing edge. And so our growing edge, of course, is to be grateful for the hard things, what brings us pain. And so if you trust me, I want to go into some of those things today because I promise I won't leave you there. Okay? So I always want to say that when I preview, this is going to be hard now, because I don't want people to think that I will leave you in that pain. But, you know, it's there, and we might as well deal with it. And if we can look at that hurt on the inside of us and the pain of the circumstances, those are the two things I'm going to talk about today. The pain that's already in there and the pain that comes to us through surprising circumstances. Two different kinds of pain. If we can put all of this in the goodness, the loving kindness, and the givingness of God, then we live life with absolutely no resistance. We live life with our heart wide open, and I'm telling you, it's so much better that way. So are you with me here? Okay, we're going to dive in. So first of all, we're going to dive into blessings from pain on the inside. So this is such a gorgeous picture that Mary found. That's like a kind of a prickly tree, kind of the pain on the inside, but the blessing that surrounds it. So here's the deal. By about age 1 or 2, we have a completely formed personality. And some of that personality is not particularly acceptable to our parents. Or to our teachers or to our peers. And so we learn relatively quickly about the parts of us, parts of our personality that are not acceptable to others. But because it's us, we can't get rid of it, but we realize that it's unacceptable. So things like the sloppy part, or the loud part, or the way too self-interested part, or the too curious part. That's for some of us. And then for some of us, it's the soft part that's not acceptable. Some little boys who grew up with the soft part not being acceptable, or the intuitive part. And so by adulthood, we operate with part of our personality on the outside, but the hidden parts don't go away. We label them bad, and we stick them on the inside and try to hide them. Robert Bly says that we put them in a bag and we drag the bag behind us, and in the bag is our shadow, the parts of us that we don't like. Maybe some of you are thinking about some of those parts right now. But the first point here is that we hide part of ourselves. But of course, it doesn't stay put. You know, the pesky parts of us do not stay put and stay quiet on the inside. And what happens, because they're not welcome, they sort of burst out. And of course, they burst out in the most inopportune ways. They burst out in inexplicable hostility, or they burst out in brutal judgment of ourselves or others. They burst out in anger, or self-forced secretiveness, or some extreme reaction to something that happens. And it's painful to us when it happens. It's painful. Now, we can go about justifying our reaction, or we can project it on another. You know, they made me angry. And that's what we do before we are aware of this going on. I'm sure that a lot of this is very familiar to many of us. But and then of course, when we have two people in a relationship that are doing this and projecting it on each other, we have just this amazing storm of throwing blame on each other from our own hidden parts. Robert Bly says, every part of our personality that we do not love will become hostile to us. So let me read that again. That's pretty great, huh? And painful to realize. Every part of our personality that we do not love will become hostile to us and cause us hurt. So the deeper that we try to bury these unacceptable parts, the greater the eruption of them. So healing, of course, involves finding the hidden part. And so you might ask yourself, is that the angry part in me? Is that the scared part? Is that the sad part? And if you have a reaction that is stronger than anybody else around you, you know that you have hit one of these places of hidden personality parts. And so there are a number of things spiritually that we can do. Mostly what I've told you from Robert Bly is a psychological perspective. But the psychological perspective can be healed with spiritual practices. And so there is this show me prayer that we can pray. And that just, it's part of the visioning technique where we say, show me what is mine to heal. Show me what is mine to learn. Show me what is mine to bring forth in love. There's also a wonderful lesson that takes place in a lot of our classes, and it's called the What Happened Wisdom Tree. And this is a worksheet. You can actually call the office and we can download it for you. It's pretty simple. But basically, it's you notice that something happened, like you flared up and you didn't mean to, and you wonder why. And then you would go back in your life and remember the first time that happened to you. Sometimes this is easier to do with someone guiding the process. But you go back in your life and you find the first time that this happened to you. And then you look at how that made you feel when that happened the first time. Usually it's very young. I've done this, and it was before I had language. I just had pictures of my mom holding me and being angry. And so then you ask yourself how it makes you feel, and then you ask yourself, what belief did I come to believe because of this experience? And it's always something self-protective and limiting and untrue. And because it's self-protective, limiting, and untrue, it causes us more pain. And so then you can kind of loop through your life and see how this has happened over and over and over again. And then the other thing that you can do to bring this part forward, this finding the hidden part, is to get a prayer from a practitioner after the service. They're listening to all of this, and they are knowing what they're going to be having as prayer requests, so they're ready for you. So then after we find the hidden part, we reclaim the hidden part, and we look for the value in this part of our personality. So for example, one of the things that has caused me trouble throughout my life is anger. I don't like it. And so of course, I have had some explosions of anger that are so unattractive and painful. But one time I used, well, more than once, but the very successful story that I'm going to tell you is when I used anger to a great advantage. And we can do that. We can move the energy of our anger to righteous action, and it works really well. So my grandmother had broken her femur, and very elderly. She was 90. And she was in the hospital, and they were trying to get her up to walk, and she was kind of a big woman. And they sent a very small physical therapist. You knew that this was not going to work out well. And the physical therapist dropped her. And so then she was terrified, and it took 3 people to get her back in bed, and she was shaky, and no one acknowledged that anything bad had happened. They tried to calm me down after I ran screaming from the room, yelling help. And then, this woman did not admit that anything was wrong. Well, I wrote a letter to the nursing staff, to the management of the hospital, to the health department, everybody I could think of, up to the senator. And they changed the policy at that hospital about admitting their, I'm sure they didn't want to admit because they were afraid of a lawsuit, but it had a positive outcome because the physical therapist then, went in pairs and there was communication with the family, and so it worked out well. So that's the blessing. I channeled my anger into righteous action then, and I recall that because I was, a warrior woman for my grandmother, and it worked out well, and she healed. And in the letter I said, my grandmother will heal not because of you, but in spite of you. It was so, felt so great. So anyway, we could find that we have a sloppy part of us that we've hidden, and actually, I hope I won't offend any artists, and we have wonderful artists here, but sometimes the sloppy part of you makes the greatest artist. And so you can channel that into art, or maybe your hidden part is being selfish, and you just tweak that a little bit in the reclaiming of it, and all of a sudden you have healthy self-love and personal power. So when we meet our shadow and call it home, we enlarge ourselves, and we get to love all of ourselves, and we get to prove what our founder said when he said God is and man is, and he was talking in the 30s there, so we can include us girls, that we all, in our essence, are perfect, whole, and complete. And in order to feel that, we need to bring back our shadow and love it. So at that point, we find the blessings and realize that there has never been a mistake, that we are not a mistake. No part of us is a mistake. No part of us is extra or unneeded. We are perfect, whole, and complete just as we are. All of ourselves is ours. We celebrate all of it. And peace returns to us in a way that we might not have felt it since we were an infant, before we knew that there were some unacceptable parts of us. That is the healing that is possible from giving thanks for the pain on the inside. God never gives us pain to annoy us. It is there for our use. And there is a way through that that makes us enlarged, whole, perfect, and complete beings. So take a big, deep breath about that and just know that whatever memories have surfaced, there is a way through these to embrace them and truly be thankful for them on this week of Thanksgiving. So, okay? Say okay? Okay, good. So the next thing we're going to talk about is blessings from circumstantial pain. Now still, we have these buttons on the inside. Things can happen on the outside, and if we don't care about it, it doesn't hurt us. But still, I want to differentiate this slightly in that something happens in the world, or in your world, that troubles you. Something you did not want to happen. It comes as a bad surprise. And you get a diagnosis that, oh boy, you wish you didn't have. Or you have work problems that you wish you didn't have. Or relationship problems, or your children get in trouble, or your grandchildren get in trouble. And this situation lands in our lap, and it comes upon us unbidden. And anybody have any of that come in your life? And me too. So what I really think that it's valuable to look at this as an interruption of our normal level of well-being. Now, whatever your level of well-being is, whether it's really, really good or pretty okay most of the time, when these bad things come to us, it's an interruption in what our normal level of contentment is, whatever that level of contentment is. And so the first thing that we want to do with that, before we try to get rid of it, is to acknowledge that it hurts and to get some help and support for that. And that is what all of these friendship groups in this community is about, is open-hearted people ready to listen to what hurts. And that is so precious and so invaluable. You know, I don't shy away from hurtful things. I mean, I go for it because that's where the growth is. And I can't tell you how many times in class I have seen such precious compassion. Someone speaking something painful and someone just reaching over and putting a hand on their shoulder, and that support and love is available. So if you're having this, get some love today. And then we experience an unhappy interruption. That's what it is. And interruption is a very positive way to look at something bad happening, because what that says is this is out of the ordinary. And it's not that I expect my luck to turn and to go more and more and more rolling in this negative direction. It's not punishment for me, and it's not evidence of something worse to come. It's an interruption of the positive level of my life. Can we do that first of all? Just think of it as an interruption. And then we don't even stop there, however. We don't call it an interruption and just stay there with that. We change the interruption to God calling. It's like something bad happens and we say, oh, an interruption in my well-being, it must be God calling. Now, our higher wisdom self, which is the God within us, speaks to us in a number of ways. That can come with a nudge, and then when we don't get the nudge, sometimes it's a little punch. And then if we don't get the little punch, sometimes it's a 2x4 over the head, because we don't all hear the still small voice. Some of us do. The still small voice that can come to us in meditation or in dreams. It can come through the mouth of others, or it can come through the interruptions in our life. And what happens if we said, when we get one of these interruptions, if we said instantly, yes, I'm listening, instead of going into blame about why something happened or how it isn't fair or that person is just dysfunctional, we instead notice our pain and say, okay, God, I'm listening. What that says and what it means to you is that there is no resistance in your heart, that your heart is open, that this painful interruption has happened. You instantly translate it to God calling, and you say, yes, I'm listening. So there is a complete willingness to put God in the center of that interruption and move away instantly from thinking that anything is wrong. When God calls, there is something to learn or a blessing to be received. So Margaret Wheatley, in one of her writings, says it this way: life, and I'm going to use the word God. She uses the word life. I'll read the first sentence with life, and then I'll retranslate it to God. Life uses messes to get to well-ordered solutions. So we can say then, God uses messes to get to well-ordered solutions. God doesn't seem to share our desires for efficiency or neatness. It uses redundancy, fuzziness, dense webs of relationships, and unending trials and errors to find what works. Now that should just make you feel so great that really, that every time you feel that there's a mess in your life, I really have tried to say to myself, wow, isn't this interesting? This is what healing looks like. Because that's what it is. After the interruption, you translate God calling, I'm listening, then the messes are the beginning of the healing. So there it is. There's the beginning of the healing right there. So then you answer the call. You immediately go into prayer, into God. You seek prayer, you seek support. You do not blame, you do not resist. And there it is, God in action in your life, ready to heal things. Then you find the blessings. So in my life, most of you know I've had 2 divorces. I've had a miscarriage. I've had cancer. I've been fired. I've actually been fired from here. And this was before this was before I was a minister. I was on staff, and it was when Lloyd left and a new minister came, and he said, "Yeah, I don't need you, Karyl." And he fired my mom on the same day as well. "I don't need you, Doris." So that was I really worked that one, I'm telling you. So all of those mishaps in my own life, or those interruptions in my own life, have been blessings in themselves and have evolved greater blessings down the line. So that saying that we've already said this month is so true. Things will work out in the end, and if things have not worked out, it's not the end. So I'll give you some more story about that being fired part, because I actually became glad I was fired pretty quickly, because I was in the School of Ministry at the time, and it sort of moved me into starting my own ministry while I was still in school. And it also, this is another story that most of you do not know, that both my mother, now a lot of you know my mom, beautiful, elegant Doris. We went to unemployment together. And we're interviewed, like, well, what happened? What are your skills? And so here's my mother, so beautifully dressed at unemployment in San Francisco. And we only went once. We said, we're going to take care of this ourselves. And so, we did. But doing that, having that experience, living through it, and being able to tell you about it and laugh about it, that's a blessing. And my ministry began, and that was a blessing. And Mom's ministry increased, and that was a blessing. And so looking back, I never would have thought that I would have chose to be fired from here. I was taught to have, a consistent resume, no breaks in the resume, and certainly no firings. And so this was an interruption. And it turned out so great. So this quote from Meister Eckhart, I know you know this one. Pear seeds grow into pear trees, nut seeds into nut trees, and God seed into God. And we are the God seed. And as we move through this pain, we all grow into the self-realized God. And that's what we are here to do for each other. That's what we are here to mirror to each other. The possibility, and not only the possibility, but the probability of immense blessings on the other side of every interruption, so that we get to be thankful quicker for those interruptions in our life. So with that, this is the Thanksgiving talk. Thankful for what we love, thankful for what we would love if we had it, teaching us to become the vibrational match so we attract it, and thankful for the pain within and without, because it leads us to such deep gifts. So happy Thanksgiving. And so, for those of you who are here for the first time, every week we have a takeaway, so that when you go have coffee with your other friends and they said, what happened to that funny church that you went to today? This is what you say about today. I learned to give thanks for absolutely everything, no exceptions. So with that, let's pray that in. Turning within now. And just taking a deep breath, just like Janet had us do, and letting our own breath follow to where the breath stops, right at the level of our heart, and then allowing our heart to open and realize the truth of that which has been spoken today. That any hurt that lives on the inside is there for a wonderful reason, to consciously allow us to grow, to include that which has been painful and find the gift in it. To welcome all of the parts of us back to the table so that our parts party includes all of the parts, not just the happy parts and what other people like, but the parts that have been in the bag, the parts of our shadow. We bring forth and actually welcome them in this moment. You little lazy part, welcome. You little angry part, welcome. You little fearful part, welcome. You little argumentative part, welcome. There is a seat for you at the table and a blessing.
I am so blessed.